It's one word, okay. That's it. That's the whole message. 4 letters, a full stop, and now you're holding your phone like it's a hostage situation because it's not okay, and it's not okay. It's just okay, full stop, cold, final. What did you do? Were they always like this? Should you double text? You reread it, you reread it again, you screenshot it and send it to a friend with the words, "How would you read this?" And somehow an hour is gone over one word. So how does a message that short swallow that much of your life? You've already got a verdict on yourself, of course. You're insecure, you're needy, you overthink everything. A normal person would have read it, thought cool, and put the phone down. But look closer, because you're not overreacting to nothing. You're reacting to a very specific something. You never do this with a long, warm, detailed message. Those you read once and feel fine. It's always the short ones, the vague ones, the ones with a little too much space inside them. The one-word replies, the dry K, the message that ends right where you expected it to keep going. Somehow, those are the ones that can hold you hostage for a whole night, and that space is the entire answer. Here's the first thing to understand. Your brain cannot stand an information gap. When something matters and the meaning is unclear, it will not shrug and move on. It treats that blank space as a problem to be solved right now. And a short, flat text is nothing but blank space. No tone, no face, no warmth in the voice, because there is no voice. Just a few bare words, and a huge, silent gap where all the meaning should be. So your brain rushes in to fill it. That's its job, to close the gap, to make the ambiguous certain again. The problem is what it fills the gap with, because here's the second piece, and it's the one that costs you. When your brain fills in missing information, it doesn't guess neutral, it guesses dangerous. For hundreds of thousands of years, the person who assumed the rustle in the grass was a predator survived a lot longer than the one who assumed it was the wind. So you inherited a mind that, faced with uncertainty, leans toward threat every single time. That's why, okay, never becomes, they're just busy. It becomes, they're annoyed with me. Your brain isn't reading the text. It's filling the silence, and it fills it with your worst fear. And now watch what happens next, because this is where the hour disappears. You land on an interpretation. They're upset with me. And instead of testing it, you go looking for proof. You scroll back. They took longer to reply than yesterday. Evidence. They didn't use my name. Evidence. Every neutral detail gets pulled in and stamped guilty. You're not analyzing anymore. You're building a case for a conclusion you already reached in the first 3 seconds. And there's one more trick keeping you locked in. Every time you reread it hunting for certainty, you get a tiny flicker of relief. Maybe this time I'll crack it. But you never do, because the certainty isn't in the message. It was never in the message. So you loop, reread, relief, no answer, reread. An hour, gone. And here is what changes everything. You were never actually decoding their text. You were decoding your own fear. Read that message back one more time. Okay, there's almost nothing in it, which means every ounce of coldness, every drop of anger, every hint that you've done something wrong, none of that came from them. You poured all of it in. The text was an empty screen, and you projected your deepest worry onto it, then read your own worry back as if they had written it. That's why the message felt so personal. It was personal. It just wasn't theirs. It was yours. Which means the person who upset you tonight was you, wearing their name. And that's the strange, almost freeing truth underneath all of it. The story you spun for an hour wasn't information about how they feel about you. It was information about how you fear they feel about you. You didn't learn a single real thing about them tonight, but you learned exactly where your tender spots are because your brain reached for them first. But here's where it quietly costs you, because the story doesn't just sit in your head, it leaks into what you do next. You reply differently now, a little cooler to protect yourself, or a little too eager to fix a problem that may not exist. And the other person, who genuinely just typed okay while walking into a meeting, now gets a strange reply. And now something's actually off. You made the fear real by acting on it. The problem you invented finally came true because you treated it as true. And there's a slower cost. Do this enough and texting stops being connection and starts being surveillance. Every message becomes a small exam you might fail. You start to dread the very people you're closest to because closeness is exactly where you have the most to lose. The love is what loads the gun. You'd never spend an hour decoding a text from someone you didn't care about. So how do you break the loop? Not by trying to finally figure out the message. That's the trap itself. You break it by changing what you do with the gap. 3 moves. 1. Name it the moment it starts. The second you feel yourself rereading, say the true sentence. There isn't enough information here, so my brain is filling it with fear. That one line changes everything because it stops you treating your interpretation as a fact. It's not a fact, it's a guess, wearing a fact's clothing. 2. Write the other endings. Your brain handed you the worst reading for free, so make it work for the others. Force yourself to write 3 innocent explanations for that, okay? They were driving. They were mid-conversation with someone else. That's just how they text. You don't have to believe them. You just have to prove to yourself that the scary version was never the only one on the table. Certainty was always an illusion. The least you can do is stop letting the illusion be the cruel one. 3. Choose the boring answer on purpose. You will never find certainty by staring harder. It isn't in there. So make a deliberate choice to assume the kindest, most boring explanation and put the phone down. If it genuinely matters, you're allowed to ask, in plain words, hey, all good between us? One honest question ends an hour of imaginary evidence. Real information is the only thing that can fill a real gap. So the next time 4 little letters land on your screen and your whole nervous system lights up, pause before you fall in. It was never really about the text. The message was almost empty. You were about to spend an hour reading your own fear back to yourself in someone else's handwriting. Set it down. Assume the kind version. And if you truly need to know, just ask. The certainty you're hunting for was never hiding in their words. It's one honest question away, and if your mind can build an entire drama out of one small word, then you already know it can do something even stranger with the future, because it doesn't only overanalyze what's already been said. Sometimes it runs full, detailed rehearsals of disasters that haven't happened and probably never will, problems you prepare for that never actually arrive. Why does your brain keep bracing for storms that never come? That's the next one. I'll see you there.